Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55 Live. I got Mr. Theme Park Wizard, Theme Park Philosophy, and Dr. Dre VashSky in the house. We're talking all about the new Disney leadership. We got Josh D'Amaro. We got Dana Walden. We also got even Filoni for Lucasfilm. It's crazy. It's a brand new day at Disney. We're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. Pros, cons, and all of the above. Up next on OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. We got Mr. Theme Park Wizard with his Universal Fan Fest. How you doing, Wizard?
Fantastico. Everyone, make sure to get your tickets. It's going to be a great year. And you can get those through me. But also, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and more. And subscribe to Theme Park Wizard for fun stuff.
There he is.
I'm gonna be live at. I'm gonna go live at Epic Universe, so go check me out there if you like that.
There he is. Wizard is going. He's going to Florida tomorrow, so he'll have a lot of great Florida content. So make sure you check out Mr. Wizard. Got the fresh haircut, looking good, Wizard. Appreciate you joining today. And we got Mr. Theme Park Philosophy, aka Jose, formerly known as Slimer. How you doing? How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks very much for having me on. And you can find me at Theme Park Philosophy. It's a new channel if you haven't checked it out, by the way. What's up, Rob, in the chat? Good to see you, sir. Thanks for joining. Essentially, what we do is we take the tool of philosophy and we just aim it at the parks, the companies that run them, and see what they reveal about the human experience. So if you're into that kind of stuff, go check out my channel, give it a sub. And thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Jose. Appreciate you. And we have VashSky back on the channel after it's been a couple of years. Vash, how you doing, man?
It has been a couple of years, but
aged a day.
I haven't aged it. Hopefully I haven't aged a day. I feel like I've aged a day, but that's okay. We are here now. We are here live, and I'm extremely happy to be back, but also, I am here talking about not just my triumphant return to Orange Grove 55, but also too, just launched a new channel. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just for a second there.
Absolutely.
So you want to go ahead and share that, OG? It is VashSky Park Cast.
Ooh, almost at 400. Look at that.
Almost at 400 subscribers without a piece of content to show for it. But people have been extremely generous about subscribing. We have a series of videos already on the slate. I will say this initial video is actually very much what we're going to be talking about today, talking about the new Disney leadership. Of course, we're going to be a little bit more broad in that conversation, but I want to go ahead and hone in on Josh D'Amaro. It's very interesting, his history and how he got to the position that he is in now. And from that, what can we glean for the future of the Walt Disney Company? It's very, very interesting if you go into it with the granularity that we will in this upcoming video. We'll also have a video after that going over Dana Walden and how Josh D'Amaro might be best served by looking over his shoulder a little bit. We'll get into some of that discussion here, but you can expect that from this channel as well. We'll also have live streams, so if you want to go ahead and subscribe now and turn on those bell notifications for when we drop videos and when we go live. That will be happening very, very soon. Thank you so much for supporting me over there at VashSky Parkcast.
Yep, there it is. VashSky Parkcast. Make sure everybody at home subscribes to Mr. VashSky. All right, let's talk about this, right? So it was like a week or two ago now, we got news that Josh D'Amaro, the Parks guy, is going to be the new CEO of the Walt Disney Company. They're elevating Dana Walden to the president position, which Bob Iger got rid of a while back. That role has been vacated for a little while now. So we got Dana back in the house. I'll start with you, Vash. I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, usually Disney kind of goes for these studio people when it comes to CEOs, right? We've had, Michael Eisner. He came from Paramount. What was it, Card Walker? I mean, history of studio people. This time we're going for a full-blown Parks guy. What are your thoughts on this? It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's like it's history repeating itself again here because, well, we went with the Parks Guide the last time, and we know how that actually turned out right there. That was going to be in February of 2020 when that happened. Unfortunately, Bob Chapek didn't get to live out his initial contract right there after getting a full confidence from the board, as you might be well aware there, OG. So it was very interesting to see his decline and then his replacement come in the form of Bob Iger in December of 2022. Now we are going back to almost where we started with a CEO who came from the Parks Division, that being the chairman of experiences. But this time, now he has a little help from the entertainment unit, and that being Dana Walden. Dana Walden is a very interesting creature. We talked about her actually on OG55 before. Remember when Peter Ice was shown the door, right? And Dana Walden was quick to back the leader in charge, that being Bob Chapek at that time, saying, "Oh, I have full confidence in him, and we're going to be okay right there." But it was revealed through a series of articles on CNBC. Actually, Alex Sherman brought this to light originally, talking about how she and Bob Iger would take walks in Brentwood where they live together. Okay, so they don't live under the same roof, but they live in the same neighborhood, right? And they were taking walks, apparently, regularly, talking about how dissatisfied they were with Bob Chapek. In fact, Dana Walden actually went to Bob Iger and voiced his displeasure and said, "How can we basically oust him?" And Bob Iger said, "Hey, you got to go to the board of directors to do that." And we do know of a particular time in which there was a walk scheduled between Dana Walden and Bob Iger for a particular time of day. And according to reports, Dana Walden had no intention of actually fulfilling that walk with Bob Iger. She just wanted to make sure that his schedule was cleared so that Susan Arnold, the then chairman of the board, could give Bob Iger a call and offer him the CEO position back. So Dana Walden is part of this kind of almost coup d'etat attempt to oust Chapek and bring Bob Iger into the fold. And it was at that time that Dana Walden was the first one that people were thinking, hey, she might actually be the CEO in waiting. But unfortunately, it wasn't hers I guess, throne to sit on, right? Because there was a couple of things that happened. One, I think her relationship with Kamala Harris kind of derailed that effort, right? Because I think if Kamala would have won, it would have been an asset. Now it's not quite seen as so, at least from the board's perspective, and wanting to keep this administration happy. Obviously, there's some regulatory concerns that they want to get approved, and they'll need this administration to do that. So that's knock one. Knock two, I think, was Jimmy Kimmel, right? Jimmy Kimmel, that whole thing that actually happened right there, not a good look for the Walt Disney Company, not a good look for Dana Walden, specifically because she is all over that. So that was a misfire. And three, I think it's that $110 million loss that the Walt Disney Company took as part of that carriage dispute with YouTube. She was assigned specifically to handle that issue, and unfortunately didn't go quite her way. So all of these things, along with Josh's rapid ascendance on the other side, I think secured Josh the win in this case. But that doesn't mean that she doesn't want some power there. So it was recently revealed in Variety, actually, talking about how when it was clear that Josh Duhamel wasn't going to get the job, that Dana Walden, apparently she had a hand in carving out some of her responsibilities to make up the president and CCO or chief creative officer position. That's very interesting. Usually that doesn't happen. Usually you're just handed whatever promotion is granted to you. But in this case, not only was she able to secure a higher base pay than Josh Duhamel year after year, but also she was able to essentially help craft her position. And I think that speaks to the aggressivity connected to Dana Walden and has been there for quite some time.
That's fascinating. Now it's interesting too, Dre, because like you brought up a great point here. Now the Achilles heel of Damaro has always been he's just a parks guy, right? And like we are in a very turbulent time right now with the studio end of things, right? Like we have AI, which is crazy. We got streaming, which is still disrupting the whole industry, and we even got this Netflix, Warner Brothers, and now Paramount thing looming, right? So there was I think a lot myself, a lot of fans were nervous, like, okay, you have a parks guy here, Tomorrow's obviously very capable, but how's he going to navigate these kind of like Hollywood studio waters? It looks like they decided to go with Dana, so they elevated Dana to that position. I want to ask you, Dre, like in terms of that position, do you feel, because you did lay out a lot of mistakes she's made, and she's fumbled like crazy since she's been at Disney. She seemed to do a better job over at Fox. Is it possible, in your opinion, like maybe Bob Iger was meddling in her department a little bit in terms of like, because, Bob is very, the more I see from Bob, and we'll get into it with that interview from ABC, which is, I think, a total train wreck for both of these guys. But like, do you feel, it was bad. It was bad. But do you feel like maybe it's possible that like Dana hasn't really been able to do Dana, and it's like Bob is sort of out there kind of like, meddling, and that's why she's been fumbling so bad? Or do you think this is just Dana just messing up?
I think this is just Dana kind of fumbling the ball here. Remember, Dana Walden was brought in with that 2019 acquisition of 20th Century Fox, right? And so in terms of the culture at Disney, it certainly has shifted in the Fox direction. I have heard from numerous inside sources that, essentially, ABC, their other television networks, a lot of them have been culled, and the emphasis has been placed on FX, Fox, and with that Hulu and other divisions directly under Dana Walden's leadership and her experience level, what she's familiar with, which is very interesting. So in terms of Bob Iger's meddling and so forth, I think there has been a little bit of that. I think Bob Iger did want Dana Walden to be the gal. There was a conversation that was had. I don't remember the source of where this actually came from, so I do apologize. But essentially, when the notion was brought up that Josh D'Amaro would be the next CEO and he'd be a fine CEO once he does take power, Bob Iger apparently bristled at that and said, "Oh, Josh D'Amaro's not the CEO yet. That decision hasn't been actually made," which I thought was a very interesting reaction, and I think kind of suggests that Dana Walden was his gal. Again, you got to think from Bob Iger's perspective, right? He still does want that kind of legacy that lives on even after he has left the Walt Disney Company. And what better legacy to be had than to actually be a big part in placing the first female CEO for the Walt Disney Company. I mean, I think that would be a nice feather in his cap right there. I think he was looking to lead that on. It is very interesting because you look at Dana Walden's success rate, and it simply doesn't have the cachet that Josh has, right? Josh has Abu Dhabi. Josh has numerous quarters in which the experiences division is the top revenue and certainly the top profit driver for the entire Walt Disney Company. But Dana Walden doesn't quite have that. And it's very interesting. Wall Street Journal recently came out, I think it was Ben Fritz actually, talking about how the movie division is a little nervous now with Dana Walden being the CCO because in their minds, she has experience with the TV side, but she has no experience with the film side, with the productions, with the live action productions and so forth, in which she is now in charge of. And so they're a little bit weary of that. You'll also note that back when there were conversations about Kathleen Kennedy being removed from Lucasfilm, right, after some disastrous box office results from like Indiana Jones back in the day. I believe that was 2022, if I'm not mistaken, is when that film out. Maybe 2023. I can't quite remember the dates there. But there was a meeting. There was an all-hands-on meeting that was called in, and apparently Alan Bergman did want to get rid of Kathleen Kennedy. Dana Walden did not. So it kind of suggests, right. So it kind of suggests that I think her intuition and how she's been running these companies. I think there has been some Bob Iger meddling for sure, but I think a lot of it has been Dana Walden. Just and we're just going to let you fly there. And I don't think she has quite had the success that Josh D'Amaro has with running his division, which is why he got the job.
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting too. And then I'm going to go to Jose and then Wizard. But like, it's interesting because it was really kind of Dana's to lose at the start of the CEO succession race. I mean, she was the favorite, and
she was, and that's going back all the way to 2022.
Exactly. And Josh outmaneuvered her. It was one thing. See, the thing is like Dana, and to your point, Dre, Dana was putting out fires almost the entire time. Josh was stacking his resume the entire time, and
Correct.
he was public, which is very important when it comes to Disney. You need to be a front-facing executive to run Disney, because I think that fans and even the investment community kind of expects that now of the Walt Disney Company. You know, if you want to be CEO of Staples or Pepsi or State Farm, you can be a behind-the-scenes business guy. But I think for Disney, I think people really want somebody who can be like an ambassador for this brand.
Right.
She really wasn't out there doing that. You know what I'm saying? So that was a huge
She was
problem
not.
for her.
And she was placed in public-facing positions. She was facing positions where she would have these conferences and so forth, and she didn't look all that sharp. She didn't look as polished, let's say, as Josh Morrow did in front of South by Southwest or D23 Expo and so forth. And I think that was one of the things that was like, I don't know if she's quite ready for prime time there. The company also looked at, hey, listen, the experiences division has been generating so much profit for the Walt Disney Company as opposed to the entertainment division. Even this last quarter, Q1 2026, fiscal year 2026, which was so critical for Josh Giamaro. It was the first time that the experiences division actually accumulated over $10 billion in revenue. And similarly, you know, the entertainment division, while they did post $11.41 billion in revenue itself, the profit was just not there. Profit was $1.1 billion from the entertainment division. Meanwhile, for the experiences division, it was $3.3 billion, 3 times the amount in terms of raw profit right there. And so that kind of disparity right there, 60-70% or so of the profit coming for the entire company coming from the experiences division has been consistent for the last couple of years. And it just, I think for the board, it was too much to ignore. I think they are placing an enhanced emphasis on theme parks in the coming quarters and years under Josh Giamaro. I think that's the vote of confidence they're giving towards that division when they elevate somebody like Josh Giamaro to that position.
Now, Jose, what are your thoughts on this, man? I mean, you know, we have Josh coming in. Obviously, he bested Dana Walden, right? And he earned it. He did. He ran a great race. But she got promoted. I know that Gorman, I think his name is, on the board. He wanted to kind of, you know, retain talent. I guess I saw that on, I think it was like Variety or something, where he wanted to retain talent. They obviously did that. They promoted her. They gave her the number 2 spot, a huge promotion. What are your thoughts on this? Do you share some of the same concerns that Dre does in terms of like her role and like her track record, or where do you stand with it?
Yeah, I share some of the concerns simply for the fact that her track record, if you want to go back and look at her track record as far as what she has done on the good side of her career, you have to go all the way back to Fox Studios. And it's because of the fact that you have to go all the way back to Fox Studios to really find the shining examples of where she was an exemplar when she was president. That's not necessarily good. And I think we've also discussed that there is a possibility that Bob Iger has perhaps prevented her from being able to shine. But again, he hasn't prevented Josh D'Amaro from shining. So I don't know how good of an argument that is, because Josh D'Amaro is rising to the occasion where Dana Walden is not. And another good point that Dre brought up here, and I want to maybe discuss this one a little bit, if we can maybe unpack this one. So Please. He pointed out that she cut it out. You pointed out that she cut out what her roles and responsibilities are going to be as president. Even though she received the promotion, this is not typically something that's concomitant with receiving a promotion, but she had a creative role in facilitating her roles and responsibilities as president of the Walt Disney Company. Mm-hmm. And I'm just asking myself, because I didn't know this, and I'm just asking myself, just in retrospect here, where was that ambition when she was trying to vie for the position of CEO, being as facing as she was? It seems like she forgot about that part. And look, I'm willing to give anybody the benefit of the doubt, but here's when it comes to Dana Walden, here's what her 30, 60, 90 needs to look like. And if she doesn't execute on this to where it's something that we can see on the SEC report and the Q3 and Q4 earnings, number one, she has to make Disney Plus more profitable. They need to be looking at ways of increasing the margins. I think they're sub double digit now. I think they're looking at like 7% or something like that. But Disney Plus needs to have better margins. Number one, that's the first thing they're going to look at. I mean, of course, that Josh D'Amaro is going to bear a brunt of that responsibility. However, I feel like this is really Dana's responsibility more so, considering what her direct oversight is of. And then she's going to have to rein in the fiscal end of entertainment as well. they ran amok with the budgets last year. You can't have $6 billion in revenue and still be negative. And I don't care what they were doing with, what was it, that one company, they had a merger acquisition towards, that affected their overall bottom line for the entertainment division. I think it was like something to the tune of like 35% if you were to look at the actual shares, the dollar per shares with and without this business deal. But that aside, $6 billion in theatrical revenue, and he still ended up underperforming. That's not a good sign. So Dana has to reel in the budgets. They have to be constrained. She has to show that she has fiscal discipline, and she has to do it in a way that the company probably hasn't seen in quite some time, right? And she also has to do this simultaneously by elevating the quality of Lucasfilm to levels we haven't seen since, well, probably. I mean, they've had their hits, but it hasn't been a consistent stream of hits for the biggest, one of the biggest franchise in movie history. And I think that the recent Super Bowl commercial, and we can talk a little bit about that if you want. But that Super Bowl commercial, OG and I were discussing. I respect them for doing something different, but a nostalgic Budweiser commercial for Mandalorian and Grogu, which is the first Star Wars theatrical release since 2019.
So 7 years.
Yeah, so 7 years. That's not the time to do something romanticizing a Budweiser commercial when the movie's release is 4 months out, right? So
that was a weird call.
Yeah,
I mean,
and especially when the previous two teaser trailers they made didn't make a big splash. There wasn't like, oh my gosh, like I want to see this movie. So you think the Super Bowl ones, you want to show more of the movie, not just create the commercials.
Right, exactly. So when you're looking at fiscal discipline, which is what she has to exemplify now with this role, both in the streaming side and the theatrical side, and yet they spend $8 million on a 30-second Super Bowl commercial for this commercial that didn't energize anybody. It kind of makes you wonder, okay, are we still seeing some residual, or is this something that, Dana had her hand in? Of course, we can speculate. I don't like to speculate, but in Q3, the speculation is over and we need to see direct results.
Well, to go off of Jose's point here, that's a $7-8 million ad spot right there, and it didn't really make.
Again, I heard it can be up to 10 million.
Right. So that's a lot of money to pour into one ad spot that didn't connect, and it didn't connect because, well, where's Variety going with that whole they had to explain what they put out there. So yes, they had a press release saying, "Oh, this is what we really were thinking," and all of that, and having to explain it. To Jose's point, that's not effective advertising, and that's not discretionary when it comes to spending, or at least it should be taken with a little bit more thought than what we saw in the Super Bowl. Now, I don't know if it was Dana Walden's call, to your point there, Jose, but it just shows that we really need to get fiscally responsible when it comes to the entertainment side of the business. As James Gorman, who comes from Morgan Stanley and handled that CEO transition, that's why he was brought in for the CEO succession committee and now chairman of the board, he has said that, well, I think entertainment and experiences could be 50-50. The only way I think that could ever be the case is if you get fiscally responsible on the studio level. Well, maybe, I don't know, a drop in experiences, but we'll see. We'll have the discussion soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, you guys are right about that ad. It was, if that ad would have happened a year ago, like if it would have happened last, Super Bowl, I'd be like, you know what? That's a fun, risky, kind of outside the box trailer. That's cool. We're still a year away from the movie. That works. Jose, to your point, we're 3 months out or something like that of this movie premiering. We haven't had a Star Wars movie in 7 years almost. It needed to show us some footage, I think, of the actual movie. I mean, come on. I mean, I think they dropped the ball on that big time, and you could see it. I mean, people were kind of upset over it on social media and what have you. Go ahead, Dre.
The Clydesdale commercials go back to what, 1975, I think, which they have a long legacy at the Super Bowl and Super Bowl times, Super Bowl ads. But again, if you're younger than maybe a millennial, do you even know what you were looking at? Again,
Right.
it's just okay. Maybe the Parodies trailer is nice when you're going for maybe a larger campaign, or I was even expecting the Coca-Cola tie-in. It's like, okay, maybe Coca-Cola is actually funding this money and they're doing it together. That wasn't the case at all, and it's just like, we know nothing about this movie. You're trying to generate hype for this movie, and it just wasn't displayed here. But there you go. OG, take it away.
You're
Yeah,
right.
no.
The lack of 4-quadrant awareness, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're in a weird spot right now, I think, with Disney, because we're half in, half out of the old regime, so to speak, and the new regime, right? And it kind of plays to, honestly, I mentioned a little bit at the beginning of the show with this whole Bob Iger and Josh D'Amaro interview, which I thought was really embarrassing. I got to be honest with you. I mean, and not to Josh's fault. It was really just the whole idea. We've seen this before, right? Where it's like Bob Iger is in legacy mode. But legacy mode is not the same path as what Disney needs for the future. So you have Josh and Bob Iger sitting there being interviewed, and the whole interview felt like, let's solidify Bob Iger's legacy. And it's like, come on, I want to hear from Josh. Why wasn't Dana there with Bob Iger in that interview? That's who we want to hear from. I don't need to hear from Josh about how he's nervous because, oh my gosh, Bob Iger's in the room with me. I mean, come on. It was all so very fake and phony because, like, you work with him every single day. What do you mean? He told the guy, the interviewer, the David Murr guy, oh man, don't remind me, I'm in front of Bob Iger. It's like, come on, dude. Like, that was like, come on. You work with this guy every single day. Let's not overblow it. The whole thing was crazy. But yeah, we're in this weird kind of transition where it's like, you know what? We got the Bob Iger era kind of still in there, but then we got this new era sort of emerging. And it's like, what's what, right? Well, so with this commercial, it's like, is this the old regime? Is it the new thing? We don't really know. I do know, though, with the movies and stuff like that, we're not going to see the fruit of the new regime in terms of the actual films for years to come. There is a lag in this stuff. It usually takes these films about 3 to 4 years in the production pipeline. It's going to be a little while before we see any kind of measuring stick as to what the new team is kind of doing, at least with the films themselves, right? Like a commercial, I don't know how quick they can churn those out, but with films, there is a lag with that for sure. But I do want to give a big shout out to Hidden Geek Village with a $50 super chat. Thank you so much, Hidden Geek. OG, thank you for bringing this super team together. Absolutely. Also, really great to see OG and VashSky together. Congrats, Vash, on the new channel. Wishing you massive success. I just subscribed, and I'm really looking forward to the live stream. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we got one more super chat from Jacob Weller with $1.99. Thank you so much, Jacob. You going on the scary Death Coaster, Wizard? Are you going to go on Fast and Furious, Wizard, or not? Are we going to be at the gift shop together? What's going on?
Yeah, we might be at the gift shop together. I think that super chat, it was after I mentioned I was going to Epic Universe. So you might be talking about Stardust Races, which I'll also not be going on. But maybe Elizabeth, but we'll have to see. But I'll get some great footage of Stardust Races. And that's what I'm excited for.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And friend of the channel, Rudio here says they dropped the ball with the Super Bowl ad. No pun intended. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And with a lackluster trailer attached to Fire and Ash that only had very few new scenes added. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, this whole Josh and Dana Walden thing is wild, right? It is. It's a crazy thing. I really hope. Well, here's the thing. I want to ask you, Vash, and we'll kind of go off of this.
Please.
We have an experiences guy in there now, right? But I've heard a lot from Josh more about the gaming stuff. Like, do you feel like Parks fans might be disappointed in the way he runs this company? Because I feel like all the energy is with Fortnite and stuff. Now, I'm down for that. I do believe that they do need to tap into that market. That's Gen Z. They got to go into that. But are the park fans going into this expecting a very theme park heavy kind of CEO? Are they going to be disappointed? Because I kind of feel like he's more focused on the gaming and the AI and this other stuff. Is that something that you've also kind of noticed, or am I?
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I guess it was just recently asked about Fortnite and the Epic Games investment that Disney has made right there and incorporating their characters and IP and parks iconography, I suppose, into the Fortnite universe. Again, this Josh Yamaro, I think this is him speaking from his experience, right? Because this falls under the consumer products or experiences division. And I think he's just saying, hey, we have had ambitions to do some of these things. We're obviously going to remain consistent with that now that I'm CEO, of course. And I think that's what that conversation's more about. I don't know, the showcasing of trailers in Fortnite. It's a weird, it's a weird thing to do in that particular case right there.
Oh, he said he wanted a movie premiere in Fortnite.
Yes. Well, I guess. I don't know how you can monetize the Fortnite. What is a tie-in with Disney's IP characters and so forth. I'm just not sure what the revenue stream right there looks like. Perhaps they're thinking of maybe if you showcase the catalog of characters from Disney's library to these Fortnite players. Oh, okay. Well, maybe we get enhanced box office. Maybe we get enhanced visitation at the parks from Generation Z, Generation Alpha, primarily playing these games. I don't know. They seem like brand deposits to me, and they also seem like this is trying to satiate shareholders more than a fundamental revenue stream for the company. That's kind of the way I felt about it. In terms of AI, that is a big, obviously, concern to investors, to shareholders, and so forth. And it should be, right? I mean, we have, hundreds of billions of dollars exchanging hands between these AI companies, OpenAI, NVIDIA, and so forth. So it's like, okay, well, when the company makes a $1 billion investment into OpenAI, and I believe gives access to its characters for 3 years, 1 year exclusively, it's like, what can we expect from that partnership, that relationship? And so that's why on the most recent earnings call, that being fiscal year 2026 Q1, a lot of the questions were directed at AI because, I think a lot of investors, monetarily speaking, obviously there's a lot of capital being poured into that. From a, from a standpoint of where does Disney fall into that equation, like where does it position itself? I think that's a really open question. And apparently James Gorman has said, at least with an interview with Variety, saying that Dana Walden and Josh D'Amaro, I think he was asked about Dana Walden specifically, they were looking to incorporate AI into their post-production, which, I don't know, that might be a way of reducing those costs, to Jose's point, in order to make that that entertainment division much more profitable in the future. I mean, I guess. I don't really know. I understand that Josh D'Amaro, what he said during the ABC interview, he was saying, oh, well, it's creativity is really with the human, and this is just a tool for creatives. And it's like, okay, at what level? Is this a tool, right, to be used by, I don't know, CGI artists in the post-production, or is this a tool by creatives like, I don't know, the director for your next Marvel film? That's what level are we talking about? Where is this AI integration going to come from? That's a really big open question. And again, they invested $1 billion in OpenAI. There have been some really big questions about whether or not OpenAI will even be a company in 2027. I think Wall Street Journal just recently pointed out that this $100 billion investment that they were going to get from NVIDIA, that might be on ice as we currently understand it. And Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, has kind of said, oh yeah, we really didn't commit to $100 billion. It wasn't going to go in this first round, of course. And now it's getting a little cagey. We now hear, stories in the back end between Sam Altman and Jensen Huang trying to, bad-mouthing each other and so forth. Anyway, all this is to say that, did Disney invest in a company that, it isn't going to be around? It's an open question right now.
No, it is. And I think the motivation for Disney to invest in that company was about, and this is just me speculating, but I think Disney is really worried about like the free-for-all kind of use of their characters and their IP. So they're investing in these AI companies to sort of kind of gain control, right? If you invest money into these AI companies, you have a seat at the table, you have a lot of leverage, a lot of pull. It's kind of like a two-prong kind of approach, right? So they do is they invest in these AI companies, and they'll also kind of do the lawsuit thing, right? So they're kind of tackling this stuff, the two-prong approach. I think that's kind of what they're doing with this stuff. But you're right.
Riding that tiger, though, expecting it not to consume you, I think that's the biggest trick here, right? I mean, because the capabilities of generating these characters doesn't just sit with OpenAI or these AI companies. These are large language models putting this together that anybody can put on their home PCs to do just that. How do you trap that? How do you cage that? How do you control that? I don't know if lawsuits or investment into OpenAI, to your point, OG, is going to be able to contain that dragon. But please, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're 100% right. Because when you start to get in bed with these companies, you're right. How do you thread that needle? You know what I'm saying? How do you keep it separate, right? Jose, what are your thoughts on that? Then I'll go to Wizard.
Yeah, those are all relevant questions. And, to be honest with you, I haven't really navigated the legal aspects, the legality of forming, licensing agreements with artificial intelligence when it comes to the utilization of Disney's IP or anybody's IP for that matter. But one thing that I can tell you, though, is that it really is an impairment on the creative capabilities when it comes to trying to utilize, we can talk about this in real time now. Like, for example, Sora. If you're going to Sora right now, at first, it was great because you could type in anything and it would create anything. And then all the companies saw what was happening and they sent out cease and desist. And now, the creative capabilities of Sora, they're so crippled by the cease and desist from these companies that saw that their IPs were being utilized in creative ways that I mean, it's pretty much useless as a creative tool, at least on the commercial level, residential commercial level. But if you buy a license agreement, yeah, sure. But who's going to buy that? It's going to cost you tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. So it's really only going to be companies that are limited to licensing, to IP, to be able to use licensed IPs. And so that rules out everybody else, which brings it to Dre's point, which is how is this going to be incorporated when it gets integrated into Disney Plus, which is going to happen, they've said 6 months from now. And so I'm not concerned. I don't feel, I'm pretty indifferent about it because I'm a wait and see kind of a guy. However, again, like, are we going to be, what's the creative flexibility going to look like? Is this going to be something that like kids are going to try and say, this is dumb? You got to use your hands. This is a child's toy, to quote Elijah Wood from Back to the Future too, right?
Baby's
toy. Yeah, it's a baby's toy. So it might be a baby's toy from like a creative, aspect. And so that's my biggest fear with that. Now, with regard to artificial intelligence and the broader picture of AI, I think that we're stuck in like a language loop here, where we like to use AI in these broad, general speaking terms, and we always use it as a pejorative, and it's always a pejorative in that it is going to take away jobs from creatives. And that is, I just got told to be quiet. So I was just out of curiosity looking at ways that NVIDIA and Samsung and other companies are using artificial intelligence to increase production and yield in their semiconductor fabrication plants, are utilizing language learning models. And there's actually a lot of ways that artificial intelligence can be utilized that has nothing to do with the creative process. And it is the responsibility of these CEOs, like Josh D'Amaro now, has to be very clear about what the message is with the utilization of artificial intelligence and how it's not going to impact the creative process. So let me give you guys a couple of simple examples here. This is all from AI, by the way. So AI is going to, number one, it's going to reduce pre-production cost and control. That's a big impact. It's actually the biggest impact. They're estimated it can save millions of dollars in expenses. Two, smarter scheduling. AI-driven scheduling tools can reduce anywhere from 5 to 10% reduction in scheduling inefficiencies. On a $100 million film, you're looking at $5 to $10 million saved. Virtual production and pre-visualization. Okay, it's a tool, but saying that artificial intelligence is going to reduce or take away the creative powers of creatives is I think that's as ridiculous as a claim as saying that CGI was going to kill the creative process. We have more artists now at these companies with CGI than we did with the hand drawn process. As much as I love hand drawn, that's just a fact. Casting and market forecasting. Okay, better risk management. Essentially, there's a lot of risk that comes with that. You can have, you can greenlight projects with stronger projected ROI with AI analytics, editing, and post acceleration. And then marketing efficiency is another big one as well. So there are 6 to 7 ways that AI can increase yield and enhance production costs by potentially double digits. And in order for entertainment to stay within the game now, they're going to have to utilize these tools. And by the way, I mean, none of these are impacting the creators, but these are all tools that are going to be implemented around the creators, so that way they can make entertainment more profitable, because they are eventually going to go back to mid-budget films and make them viable again. Without these viable mid-budget films, you're going to have years like 2025 again, where it's like one merger acquisition and whoopsie, there goes all the profit for every single quarter for the year.
Yeah, and these companies, it's really is, there's like the temptation is there, right? Where like the AI thing, it can decimate the whole creative process, and it's like it's scary for a company like Disney, because Disney was built on great creative talent. I mean, going all the way back to like the Sherman Brothers and Mary Blair. I mean, these creative minds really built this studio. It's a slippery slope when you have AI in the mix now. Josh D'Amaro did say in the interview, to be fair to Josh, he did say, okay, we're going to use it responsibly and it's not going to replace the creative process. And I believe him when he says that, but for how long? And I can see this being a huge temptation where it's like more and more of this stuff sort of bleeds into the process. And that's what kind of worries me, especially for a company like Disney. What say you, Wizard? I mean, you're younger than us three. Like, I mean, what's your take on this, young buck, in terms of AI and all that stuff? I mean, are you as hard on it as we are, or you are more open?
Well, to it? AI, I hope, like I said, some of the behind the scenes stuff Jose was saying about cutting costs and things and making things more efficient. Hey, that's fantastic. But I echo the concerns for Disney Plus. How will that be infused in Disney Plus? And that plus the whole short form content thing they're doing.
Right.
It's kind of weird. Was this a YouTube channel or is this Disney Plus? I know that it's kind of weird to me. Like, why don't you just make a good show for Disney Plus instead of doing all this other stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'll check it out, but I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. I'm really curious how it's going to be infused into Disney Plus. I do hope it's not going to be, AI. I'm sure there won't be like AI movies or anything like on feature films, but if they use it to help behind the scenes, sure. But I do hope it's, I hope I won't be watching Toy Story 6 and I'll see something that's clearly AI,
Well, it's interesting, and Dre, I want to kind of address this to you and kind of see what your thoughts are on this. I feel like the user generated AI stuff on Disney Plus is kind of a two-pronged thing. Like, they want to keep people on the platform, which I understand that. But number two, it kind of almost feels like a data mining thing. Like, they can kind of see what the fans are sort of wanting and what they're creating. And that kind of helps them, kind of gives them information as to what they should be doing. Am I off base for that? Or is that, where do you stand with that?
No, yeah. I mean, data collection has been a part of Disney's repertoire or portfolio for a while. They don't much talk about it, but we do know that has been the case for quite some time. So I do agree with you, OG. I think there is some data mining to be had there when it comes to user-generated content. But the other thing too, I will say with that is, I think Wizard is exactly correct. It's like, why don't you create a great show? The problem is, I don't think they can, and I think they know that, and I think that's why they are putting user-generated content, because they want to reduce the costs of having a platform like Disney Plus. I mean, they spent tens of billions of dollars year over year to try to improve or provide subscribers of Disney Plus, high quality content, and it just it really didn't materialize, I think, in the way that they felt. And remember, a lot of the thing that investors said that they were concerned about when it came to Disney, when Chapek was removed, was how much money they were losing per quarter with Disney Plus. I think it was a record losses for the quarter in which Chapek was ousted. And so they've been trying to reduce those expenses. They've been trying to reduce those costs associated with that. And one of those ways is cutting productions. And we've seen productions cut on Disney Plus's end, along with other streamers, for a while now. And that's how they've achieved this recent, profitability. And it's only tens of millions of dollars in profit compared to the billions that the parks make, but at least it is profitable and not losing money. So how do you facilitate content generation without producing big budget TV shows like The Acolyte or like any of these other titles that we've seen? Well, you use user-generated content. I think that's the really big idea that they have going for them in terms of this user-generated content, and maybe even some stuff with the Sora as well. But I don't quite know if it's the value add that Disney believes it is for the consumer. I don't know any consumer that's like, hey, I'm maintaining Disney Plus, or I'm going to buy into Disney Plus because I can see user-generated content. I don't see that working out. We'll see how it's incorporated in and so forth. But I just don't see that. When it comes to AI and the use of AI, I remember I was privy to a couple of internal documents from Disney, and they were suggesting the same things that you were suggesting, Jose, but actually with the experiences division. It was the head of food, beverage, and merch at the time saying that they were going to use AI for scheduling and inventory management and a whole bunch of roles that could streamline that process. And they were suggesting that jobs weren't going to be cut at all, which I thought was very interesting. Now, 2 years later, I think that paradigm has shifted. This is why James Gorman is saying one of the mandates that he's giving Dana Walden is how to incorporate AI into the post-production process. That could only mean one thing: reduces in costs at that level. And when you look at the entertainment division, and when you look at their expenses when it comes to each one of these films, post-production is enormous. And wouldn't it be great if we could reduce those costs? I think that's the ultimate goal right there. As an animator working for Disney, I think it's somewhat discouraging that you would see the company that you work for invest $1 billion into OpenAI and provide them their characters when, it's like this technology, if improved enough, might end up replacing us. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Right. But that's got to be the thought process going through their minds. I think like in between artists and so forth, I mean, it's going to get a little dicey here very quickly, I would think.
I agree. Now, Kiki and Luca here asks a great question. Is Disney, and this actually ties into the Netflix Warner Brothers thing, and I'll tell you why in a second, but is Disney Plus trying to be like YouTube and get more user-generated content? Yes, they are, Kiki and Luca. I think in a lot of ways they are. But here's the thing. One of the sticking points with the Netflix deal with buying Warner Brothers is that market share with the streaming service, right? Netflix is arguing, though, YouTube is part of the streaming service game, right? Now, Paramount and other people are saying, no, it's not. But here's the problem. Disney is kind of almost inadvertently helping Netflix buy Warner Brothers, because by making Disney Plus more like YouTube, you're lumping Disney Plus in with YouTube. And now that bolsters Netflix case. Like, yeah, see, all these streaming services, you can create your own thing. You can watch, content. It's just like YouTube. Dre, what do you think about that? I mean, it kind of almost, in a weird way, sort of like makes the case for Netflix in a weird way, right? Because you're turning Disney Plus into a creation platform along with consumption. It's not just consuming now, like you're creating on the platform too, just like YouTube.
That's a really interesting point, right? And we look at the market share for YouTube. It is absolutely massive. It's huge when it comes to the streaming space. So yeah, maybe you are making the case for Netflix right there. Look, one of the big questions faced when it comes to Josh D'Amaro or Dana Walden as they look into the outlook of the company and the future of it, they're going to have to find a path forward for Disney Plus, how they can turn that into a real profit driver you know, the likes of which we may not have seen since, you know, the big cable days, right? I mean, linear television for Disney was a huge revenue driver. I mean, we're talking billions and billions per quarter, and now that has been completely obliterated. The other thing that we've seen is ancillary revenues from these films, right? Like DVDs, Blu-rays, that's all gone away. We're gonna have to make up that revenue loss in some way going forward. That's gonna be an open question. And here's the other thing: if Netflix is able to seal this deal with Warner Brothers, which I know Paramount has just recently come out and said, "Hey, we're going to sweeten this pot even further." Right. You know, we don't want that girl's not into you, but we're going to try anyway. We'll see what actually happens right there. But let's say Netflix is successful in getting Warner Brothers, right? Ted Sarandos has been very clear. He thinks the theatrical model is dead. Now he's telling you all the right things right now. Oh yeah, oh sure, don't worry about it. We'll still release that Warner Brothers slate in theaters. Don't you worry. But look, when that ink dries on that deal, where's the obligation to keep releasing those films in theaters? And if that goes away, because remember, Warner Brothers, before Zootopia 2 and Avatar 3 came out, they were the #1 at the box office for 2025. If one of the biggest players in theatrical goes away because Netflix deems it so, what does Disney do then? Where is Disney Plus positioned when it comes to Netflix acquiring somebody like Warner Brothers and their content library that they'll have access to? And what does Disney look like with the implementation of AI, when anybody can create the stories that they want to on their own time, in their own way, and so forth, utilizing your characters? Maybe you want them to use them, maybe you don't. That's going to happen anyway. And then what is going to happen when theatrical might go away? These are all big questions facing Josh D'Amaro and Dana Walden.
It is, yeah, because theatrical is already kind of a little bit of a melting ice cube already, right? It's kind of on shaky ground, right? And if Netflix buys Warner Brothers, and like you were saying, Vash, where, you know, they don't keep their promise, right now they're saying, yes, we're going to do the theatrical, that's why we're buying it. Okay, but if Vash, by the way, if you can put your channel in the chat, Kiki and Luca wants to share it, so go ahead and do that. Absolutely. Yep. But yeah, I mean, if Netflix doesn't keep their promise, that's going to be a big problem for theatrical, because it's already kind of on its back legs. You know what I'm saying? Theatrical isn't really, it's not dying. I mean, it's not dead necessarily, but it's certainly not thriving like it once was, right? And I think that if Netflix, you know, really pulls back on that WB content in the theaters, that could really decimate. And then you're right, Vash, that's a great point too. Then what does Disney do? Because now it's like, Disney, are they going to follow suit? Are they going to pull back on their theatrical too? It kind of can spiral into this whole thing where it's like, now Disney's not doing it because, well, it's like, it's not worth it because Warner Brothers doesn't do it anymore. It can lead to a whole big issue. What's your thoughts on that, Wizard? You're muted, brother.
Yes. All right. Yeah, I'm curious because that is, you know, it's very interesting because, you know, we have the whoever gets the Warner Brothers thing, we'll see what they do with the theatrical space. Disney so far has been pretty committed to the theaters, though. They still have the longest windows and everything. So I don't. And it's, I mean, look, they're making a lot of money with Zootopia and Avatar and things like that. So I don't see that changing too much. Even Send Help, a mid-range movie, has still been in there for like almost a month now and making some money. Disney Fox movie. So I feel like they wouldn't. I feel like they really wouldn't back down. They may shorten them, but I feel like they wouldn't totally give up the theater model, at least initially, because I feel like it's been pretty successful for them, even to this day with these long theatrical windows.
Yeah, absolutely. Jose, what are your thoughts on that, brother? Like, because, and this is one of the concerns I had with Josh D'Amaro, is just because, look, Josh is a very capable executive. He is. I mean, he knows how to navigate these waters. The dude knows what he's doing for sure. But it doesn't have this entertainment experience, and we're going through a major seismic shift in Hollywood. What are your thoughts on this whole thing with theatrical?
I mean, at the current moment, I don't have any reason to be concerned about their theatrical, provided that they implement artificial intelligence as as they're saying they're going to implement. And again, I think clarity is the most important thing on how they're going to communicate that to the shareholders, because I think because a lot of people are being fed a dogmatic approach, a dogmatic dictation of what AI actually does. They're solely focused on how it's going to replace the creative process. And that is not entirely true. There are ways that AI can facilitate lower production costs from head to toe, but they need to be very specific about what that process is going to look like, both for theatrical and for Disney Plus. Now, that's going to result in some job loss because they're going to become more efficient. And when you become more efficient, you require less people. But at the same time, you're saving the entertainment side of the business. That's just business, okay? And as technology evolves, that is what we've always done to increase yield, margins, and productivity. So that's all something that I think Josh has successfully done with experiences up to this point. I mean, he's already been managing 80% of the company. What's another 20%? What I do like about the power split between Dana and Josh is that Josh can lay a little of that responsibility on Dana, so that way it doesn't befall him completely. Smart. And so that level of risk management is smart, and it's something that I speak to as something foundational to the Walt Disney Company, whether it's, Eisner and Wells, Walt and Roy, and now we have Josh and Dana. So they can divide and conquer however they see fit. But again, I do think that they're going to split the risk when it comes to how they're going to take that approach. When it comes to the parks, something that I think that Josh needs to focus on in his first 90 days, and I said this in your last video, he needs to be very direct and clear with the shareholders as to where the $60 billion in investments are going to be going into the parks. I still don't know I don't know the specifics. They came out with a pie graph about a year ago. People have made their own pie graphs just based off of numbers that have been reported at shareholder meetings, but there hasn't been a conclusive, comprehensive one, just a very direct message as to where the $60 billion are going to go. And as a shareholder, I want to know where that's going. I want to know if they still have these longstanding commitments that they've made under the Bob Iger era. I think one example that we've discussed several times now is Iger's commitment to putting an Avatar land in DCA. Is that still something that's going to happen under Tomorrow? Or is Tomorrow looking at putting that CapEx in another park, like perhaps Abu Dhabi? This level of clarification wouldn't be necessary if it wasn't for the fact that we are now switching CEOs in the middle of a $60 billion restructuring of all their domestic and international parks. And that's something he's going to have to address sooner than later.
Yeah, no, great. Actually, you're the segue king, Jose, because that's actually what I wanted to talk about. Because Showmac here says Avatar only did 1.4 billion, which for any other franchise, 1.4 is still really good. But from Way of Water doing 2.3 billion though, right? So there is a gap there. There's absolutely a gap there. I'll start with you, Dre, and I'll go to Jose. And Wizard is here with us still. Just want to let you guys know his camera just went off, but.
Dre, before that's by the way, it's a 55% drop in revenue from Avatar 1 to 3. That's how much of the fan base they've lost.
Right. And Dre, you brought it up on this channel a while back where, Bob Iger needed to justify the $70 billion Fox purchase. So how do you do that? You invest in the parks with Fox properties, right? Now, so we're getting Pandora in DCA, which I'm excited for because I love Pandora. We were there together a few years ago. It's an amazing land, Yes. I'm down for it. I'm all in for it. But here's the thing. They haven't announced, and to Jose's point, they haven't announced Monsters, Inc. closure yet.
Mm-hmm.
The film is a success, but it's not doing the banger numbers that the last one did, right?
Yes.
Do you feel, Dre, that it's possible that there's not the appetite with the new administration with Josh? Josh doesn't have the same sort of connection to that Fox deal. Is he going to want to go through with this, or do you think it's possible they put that on ice and we'll do Zootopia instead?
It's a decent possibility. It's a really decent possibility now because, and the writing was on the wall back in October of 2025 when they re-released Way of Water, and Way of Water was way under that re-release right there, way under the numbers of the original Avatar when it was re-released ahead of Way of Water back in 2022, and it was like, are we gonna see problems on the horizon? And we did. 1.4 is good for any other franchise, as OG has pointed out. Kathleen Kennedy would have loved 1.4 with something like Indiana Jones, right? like that is a fantastic number. But when you are talking about the level of investment as required by like an Avatar installation and Disney California Adventure, something that will have to, will be there for 40 years, well, now it gets a little bit. It's like, are we investing into a franchise that is already cooling? That is a big question mark, and this was why I was a little bit skeptical of the entire $60 billion investment by the Walt Disney Company as a whole, because they were saying, look, this is going to be over 10 years. Well, we knew at that time that Bob Iger was going to be there to see that 10 years through, and then they said that the bulk of that is going to be on the latter half of that 10 years. And it's like, okay, well, how is this even going to be divided up? They also said that, 50% is going to be maintenance and upkeep and so forth. So now we're only talking about a half of that, $30 billion over 10 years. That's about $3 billion a year. But that includes Cruise Line, which has been accelerating in terms of its fleet production for quite some time now. That includes resorts. That includes the parks as well. And to Jose's point, how is that being divided? This is a question that Nelson Peltz in his white paper actually had. When it came to where this $60 billion investment was going. He was out asking that question, and remember, he was given the, it's a distraction. Okay, well, but it's a big question, though. Like, how is this all going to be divided up right here? $3 billion a year for the Experiences Division sounds like a big number until you think about how much Disney spent in its entertainment division. I mean, do any of you know how much they spent on entertainment in the year of 2025?
I do not. No,
I do not.
$5 to $10 billion. I'm gonna guess.
They spent just shy of $25 billion on entertainment in the year of 2025. And so when you look at the CapEx number being anywhere between $6 to $3 billion for the experiences unit, especially with how much it contributes to the bottom line every single quarter, it's like, what is going on? Like, why is there this massive disparity right here? And with that CapEx that has been that has been shifted over to the Experiences Division, it's like, do we want to spend that on what was Bob Iger's dream? Because Bob Iger was really pushing for Avatar to be included in the parks after the success of Way of Water back in 2022. That was the biggest box office success in many years for the Walt Disney Company when Bob Iger was pulled back in, and that's why he brings it out at his first earnings call of February of 2023. And that's just a different paradigm now. It's just shifted now. And so I could definitely see them kind of rethinking this and going, I'm not sure if this is going to happen. Now, apparently they have spent a lot of money in terms of development for this new land. Well, from what I understand, they still haven't finalized it. So it does kind of leave that open question. Now, we did today just get news that they are going to demolish the TDA, or Team Disney Anaheim East, right? That building there that sits on that plot of land north of the Pumbaa lot. If people are familiar with the harbor area and, all of that, right? That's for what is, Eastern Gateway 2.0, as it was folded into Disneyland Forward and approved a couple of years ago. So the reason I bring that up is because that parking structure that will be taking the place of that TDA East building and the surrounding area will be, they'll need to establish that before they get to Avatar. And that's a lot of time, 2 to 3 years, for them to get cold feet on Avatar itself.
Yeah, no, you're right, because that Pixar PAL structure took about 18 months. Or even maybe a little bit more than that. So they're just starting
about 18
on this.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's crazy. And it's interesting too, Dre. I'm kind of wondering, and I haven't had you on to talk about this, but I want to pick your brain on this too, where it's like,
please,
what's your thoughts on where they're putting it? Like, because a lot of people said, hey, just put it in the symbol lot. It's a parking lot. It's a clean slate. Now, a good friend of the channel brought to my attention that there's already water lines and things underneath Hollywood Land, so that kind of that work is already done. Is that probably why they're choosing this area as opposed to Simba, or what are your thoughts on that?
It's one of the reasons, for sure. I mean, This is also why Rivers of America, right, is going away over at Magic Kingdom. Why Muppet Vision 3D was chosen to go away as well in kind of the Monsters Inc. area where that will crop up at Disney Hollywood Studios. If you can get away with reutilizing or tying into existing infrastructure, a lot cheaper than setting up new infrastructure for a brand new expansion, right? And so they've chosen the path of least resistance in this instance, and they're going to the north of the Hollywood Land area that has electrical, water, and if you don't meaningfully expand the capacity for a park like Disney California Adventure, which they will, but not hugely so, you also don't have to facilitate the supporting infrastructure for that increased capacity, if that makes sense, right?
Right.
That's the other thing. That's the other reason why, these expansions in Walt Disney World don't really feel like that when you see so much replacement actually going on. So I think that is kind of part of it. Let's be honest, though. I mean, in terms of Disney California Adventure, Hollywood Land does feel like a dead portion of that theme park, right? It hasn't gotten significant investment in a long time. It has a lot of dead space, a lot of things that could be, in Jeff Valley's terminology, could be better utilized, because that's what he said about the rivers, right? Underutilized. Okay. If you can better utilize that area and square footage, I mean, that's the calculation. This is investment by spreadsheet, unfortunately, with the Experiences division right now.
Now, do you feel, because when we were in Florida, Hollywood Studios, they have Galaxy's Edge, right? And you're very familiar with this, Jose. You're out there in Florida and stuff. And Wizard, you'll be there tomorrow. But in Florida, they don't really have a transition for this Batu. It's like you go under like a freeway underpass and you're in the land. Is that what you're expecting for Pandora if we get it? Something like that? Like you could go under a tunnel and boom, there you are, Pandora?
I mean, any transitionary space will require land dedicated to it. And so even if they did want to incorporate a transitionary space to break up existing Hollywood Land or Buena Vista Street and Avatar, I just don't know if they have those resources afforded to them to do it in this instance if they want to maximize the footprint of this Avatar land, which I think they might. So the transition might be a little harsh. It might not be as seamless as something like maybe Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, for example. It might look more like the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disney Hollywood Studios.
Yeah. Now, Jose, you brought up, and you make a great point in the group text and stuff like that about the, Animal Kingdom and how much it's actually gained from a Pandora. And you've made the case like, it's not. It has. I mean, it rose pretty quickly with the addition, but then it also kind of fell off. If you want to go ahead and explain that and kind of elaborate on what your thought space is in regards to the whole Avatar brand, in regards to maybe putting it in DCA.
Yeah, so going back to what I was telling you, and Vash and Wizard, essentially, Animal Kingdom saw a large spike with their introduction of Pandora. It was a phenomenal hit. It's one of the best executed lands in the entire world when it comes to bringing movie to the parks. However, people just aren't interested in Pandora anymore, and we've confirmed this now through the theatrical releases. Avatar: Way of Water saw a dramatic decrease, and then again we saw a dramatic decrease with the new Fire and Ash. So people are checked out of the Pandora franchise. And I've heard a lot of people make the argument, well, maybe it's because Animal Kingdom just doesn't have the same amount of attractions. That's not the case. Animal Kingdom has the same amount of attractions and rides as Hollywood Studios, and yet still underperforms. And it is also a better looking park. It is by any objective measure, it is substantially a better looking park. So there's more to see. And now one can also argue, and this is one that I'll grant, is there you don't have the nighttime entertainment. I mean, Hollywood Studios has Fantasmic, Legacy Show, one of the best. You can catch Fantasmic. I mean, you've pretty much caught the best nighttime show in Walt Disney World. And that is one aspect that Animal Kingdom is missing, but it doesn't explain the drop in attendance. Not just nighttime, the lack of nighttime entertainment alone can explain the drop in attendance at Animal Kingdom. So two things that I think is a problem with that park specifically. Go ahead.
I would agree with you that Animal Kingdom has this very similar attraction count to Disney's Hollywood Studios. I would differ though, because you got to look at attraction quality as well, I would think the attraction quality is slightly higher at Disney's Hollywood Studios than it is at Disney's Animal Kingdom. The other thing too that Animal Kingdom has that Disney's Hollywood Studios doesn't contend with, like you said, I do agree with you with the nighttime entertainment, but one of those attractions that relies so heavily on the animals doesn't exist at Disney's Hollywood Studios as well, and that being the safari, Kilimanjaro safaris. Well, when you rely on animals that heavily, they go to sleep, and so do you have attractions around it that can take its place? And that's one of the reasons why that park closes the way it does. And it's really unfortunate. It shouldn't happen. I think that park should stay open longer. But when you look at the value of the parks around Animal Kingdom, and then you look at Animal Kingdom with those reduced hours, with a low attraction count, maybe attractions, the newest attraction that it's had, right, is what, 2017's Avatar. It's kind of like, long in the tooth, let's go over to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge over there at Disney's Hollywood Studios instead. I think that's the calculus being made by consumers when they are mapping out their vacations. Now, I will say, for Avatar, it is, I think, one of the reasons why people visit that park at all is for that Avatar land, especially if they haven't seen it themselves. But you're right there, Jose. It's like, how relevant will it stay? How much will that be the case in the long term? I really don't know. For Disney California Adventure, they might get away with incorporating Avatar, especially if they go with the boat ride, because that's one of the things that DCA desperately needs 100%. Is a boat ride. So from an operation standpoint, I think it does work. The question is theme and IP. Look, I think with any of these things, execution is far more important than IP, right? Nobody's heard of Waterworld. And yet, Wizard, back me up here, that Waterworld Theater has backed every single Showtime, right? That's the difference between IP and execution.
Yeah, I also think no matter what it goes in the Hollywoodland plot, whether it's Avatar or something else, no matter how many people say they want or don't want it, I feel like it'll always be quite busy, because Disney California Adventure benefits from a lot of locals, and whether people like cars or not, they're always in Cars Land. People think Tomorrowland needs a big refurb, but that's always really busy, right? So I feel like since there's so many locals that are there, especially in the festivals like California Adventure, I feel like Avatar, no matter what goes back there, it'll always be busy as long as it's pretty high quality, or like Cars Land level. Even Avengers Campus is just okay, and that land's always packed with people watching Spider-Man and riding Spider-Man. So I feel like DC does have a benefit there with just locals just coming in and riding stuff anyways, no matter how good it is or not.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the gift and the curse a little bit with stuff with Disney, because it's like the Tomorrowland problem, right? Like, it needs the love, but like you were saying, Wizard, and you're not wrong, it's packed. So what's Disney's incentive to go in there and start ripping everything up? I mean, the land's packed, So
well, that's what was revealed in I believe it was Ben Fritz, right? I believe it was the Wall Street Journal that had the big the big down low as to the history of the experiences division under Josh D'Amaro, and even predating him in some instances. They passed over on a redo of Tomorrowland, specifically because operations managers felt that they would not get the attendance increase from an investment at that level. And that's super unfortunate, right? Because we all know that, look, it's not all about attendance, and it's not all about profit all the time. Sometimes it's about relevance and not having your park look shabby, right? That's one of the reasons why you can demand a bigger price tag at the gate is because of the quality of the experiences on the other side. And so that was most unfortunate to see. But like Jose says, it is a business. It's show, but it's also a business. I can understand the mindset, but I just this kind of expansion or addition or capital expenditure by spreadsheet, not a fan.
Yeah, no, and that was interesting too, that whole article, because it was like really convenient timing for Josh D'Amaro. It felt like very much like a JPEG hit piece, and Josh sort of like trying to separate himself from that era, because he was very much involved in that era. But like, I feel like that was right before they announced him, and that was like his team. And this is just me being conspiratorial, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it was Josh D'Amaro's team sort of like putting it out there like, yeah, that era was kind of terrible, but I had nothing to do with it. It was that distance thing. You know what I'm saying? It felt very PR-ish to me, and that's where Josh excels. I can see through it because we're all very savvy here. We follow this stuff very closely.
Sure.
But I think a lot of people, I mean, man, he's good. He's good. I'll just say that. He's really good.
Very good. And that's why you got to keep an eye on him, right? Because he'll weasel his way out of stuff. I mean, look, it is amazing how he is the guy that sends out that letter to the Imagineers talking about Lake Nona, and you got 18 months to move or you'll lose your job. He's the guy that sends out that letter. And yet none of that really falls back on him. It's very interesting how it all kind of worked out for him. Similarly, he's the guy that also pulls out of the tax subsidies for this with the city of Anaheim, right? In preparation for Measure L. If people don't understand what I'm talking about here, remember, it was a very caustic time in the 2010s when it came to the relationship Disney had with Disneyland and Anaheim, right? It was very, very bad. Mayor Tom Tate goes back and forth with them. The city denies them their tax incentive when it comes to the new fourth hotel. They have to cancel that project. They have to sideline the Eastern Gateway project for almost 10 years until it was folded into Disneyland Forward successfully. And that, that kind of very, hellish relationship between the two entities. Josh Giamaro, when he comes in, he's like, look, you know what? We're not going to go ahead and take any tax subsidies from Anaheim anymore. Clean slate, fresh new way. But that was all in preparation for Measure L. That would be voted on by city residents and was passed. Measure L says you have to pay your employees a certain minimum wage, and that would increase in subsequent or following years, right? If you take any tax subsidies. That's why they pulled out of the tax subsidies. It wasn't to clean the slate. It was to get away with paying their employees less. And yet nobody, that's not connected to Josh Giamaro in any way, even though he's the one doing it. Look, Rivers of America, right? A very controversial decision to bulldoze that and replace it with Cars Land and Villains Land Beyond and so forth. Remember, that was announced at the D23 Expo in the Honda Center, and everybody was there, right? And they're like, hey, we're getting 14 attractions or whatever it was. And one of those happens to be Cars, and another one happens to be Monsters, and all of this stuff. But didn't actually specify what was, what they were taking the place of.
They dropped it in the vlog. Yeah.
2 days later, 2 days after that announcement, by the time everybody goes home, everybody flies away, they drop Disney Parks blog and says, yeah, that Cars Land expansion that we're going to give you, it's going to come at the cost of Rivers of America. And then months later, they say, the Monsters Inc. land that we talked about, it's going to come at the cost of Muppets Courtyard and Muppet Vision 3D. Again, all of these things happen under Josh Giamaro, including Lightning Lane and everything else. And yet none of it, falls back on him.
It doesn't.
Now you're going to be in the investment class, right? You're going to be in front of, as the CEO, you're going to be in front of the shareholder class. Will they give him the same leeway on that level? I don't know. Go ahead, Wizard.
I'd say, yes, Josh was the head of the parks, and those things did happen under Josh. But as a counterpoint, and this is where obviously Josh is the head and he's going to have to prove it. But as a counterpoint, look at the things that Disneyland that were announced. Coco and Avatar and Avengers. All of those were in either underutilized areas people don't like Hollywoodland, or actual expansion parking lots. So then the real question is, could it be Josh? Yes, because he approved it. But could the real mastermind be Jeff Volley from Walt Disney World? And Josh said, sure, whatever, because they didn't do the same thing at Disneyland, and Josh was also the head of the parks for that one.
That's a fair point.
It is a fair point, but you are also in the position to say no. You were also in the position to say, you know what, maybe let's go in a different direction with this. Because we saw that with actually Tom Staggs. When Tom Staggs becomes Parks and Resorts chairman at that time, taking over the job from Jay Rasulo, when that kind of switched there. He was a CFO before, and then he was chairman then. It was like, okay, here's a race. Let's see who's going to be my successor. Spoiler alert, nobody was. That's besides the point. When he comes in and he sees the new Fantasyland improvements, right? It's a lot of meet and greets. You're going to meet with Cinderella, you're going to meet with Sleeping Beauty, you're going to meet with Belle, you're going to meet with Pixie Hollow and all this kind of stuff. But he's a family with two boys, and it's like, there's nothing here that's four-quadrant. This is a problem, right? And that's when we get the implementation of Snow White, Seven Dwarfs Mine Coaster, very late in the game. But that's when it's incorporated and included. So on the one hand, yes, you can be deferential to your resort presidents. And I think Jeff Volley had a lot to do with the additions made and the changes made, but it still happens under Josh. And look, if Jeff Volley wants to make that call, fine, but what calls are we making for the long-term quality and health of these parks? Is at what point do the decisions of your underlings fall back on you? That's the question.
No, you bring up a lot of great points, Vash. I've been saying this for a long time too, where Josh doesn't really get held accountable for a lot of stuff. I think because he's very charismatic, fans love him, and so it's always like the other guy or his boss or this, that, and the other. It's never his fault, right? But we also have to remember when Chapek became CEO in February 2020, just a few months later, one of the first promotions that Bob Chapek made was promoting Josh D'Amaro. Now, I mean, you could make the argument, why was Chapek so into D'Amaro? like if he's not of that mindset, of a Chapek mindset, why was that so, that was one of the first things he did.
Yes. Yeah, well, it was one of the first decisions he had to make because the chairman position was open. So obviously you want to make your personnel decisions. But it is interesting how he did promote Josh there, right? Because I think if you don't promote somebody who's not going to be able to facilitate your vision, right? You have to believe in them. You have to trust in them that they're going to be able to facilitate your vision for whatever place you have them in. And really, from Chapek's point of view, it was, we got to maximize monetization of the parks. We just got to go gangbusters with it. And that's where we get, the reservation system, the lightning lane, and so forth. That all these decisions are made under Josh. And, people want to say, well, it was this, it was that, it was the other thing. Josh still made those decisions. And by the way, even when Bob Iger comes in, those decisions remain. And so you got to think, what is Josh D'Amaro going to be like now in the CEO position? It's going to
especially
be really
if he promotes Jeff Volley to his own permission.
That's a good point right there. That's a
great point. Well, and that's one of the things too with Josh D'Amaro is we don't really know, because I think Josh is a very savvy executive. I think I think Josh knows how to play the game really, really well. Now that's great, but because of that, we don't really know the real Josh though.
That's the problem. And I think WW Pro asked me this very question, OG. He says, who is the real Josh? And I always say, it depends on who he's speaking in front of. Because depending on his audience, he will tell you what you want to hear. He'll tell shareholders different from Matthew Muir, and he'll tell, or not Matthew Muir, David Muir, right? If I maybe say, I do apologize. He will say something different in front of somebody like him. He'll say something different in front of shareholders, investors. He'll say something different to the board, to James Gorman, and to consumers, and at the D23 stage. It just depends on who he's in front of, and that's why he's very charismatic and he looks good. He does it with a smile, and that's what Bob Chapek didn't benefit from.
100%. And you got to be able to smooth in Hollywood. That is people underestimate, not even in Hollywood, just in business in general. Being able to navigate social waters is extremely important to be successful, really, in anything. And Josh has that, Now, before I dive into Kiki and Luca, Wizard, you are going to be waking up very early tomorrow. So if you want to go ahead and let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, you're going to head out. But let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
You can find me on Theme Park Wizard on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube. And you can subscribe on YouTube immediately.
There he is, Wizard. Have a safe flight. Enjoy your trip. Keep us posted. I can't wait to hear all your thoughts on Epic Universe and all that good stuff, man.
Oh, yes. I'll be right back on here on Wednesday next week. Let's go.
Let's do it. Wizard, have a great night.
Wizard.
Thank you, Wizard. All right. So Kiki and Luca here says, member for 19 months. Kiki and Luca, thank you so much. Says Josh is going to have a lot of pressure to raise earnings. How do you think he's going to try to increase revenue? I mean, maybe it's that AI.
By cutting costs. That's going to be the first strategy, is by cutting costs. That's their most immediate thing. Is the low hanging fruit. They're going to do it. Entertainment, Disney Plus, the entertainment side of the house, obviously, as VashSky astutely pointed out, $25 billion in capex for a year is absolutely insane. That is not
Crazy.
it is not sustainable, and that is why the experiences division has had to grow almost by necessity to fill in for entertainment. And had they not, I mean, the Disney's position wouldn't be as strong as it is today. I'm not talking about the shares. I'm talking about cash flow. I'm talking about actual money, right? We're not talking about shares, market value, those kinds of things. So Josh has had to do this out of necessity. So he is in a good position to grow the company, but it's going to be growth from cost savings first and foremost. What it's going to look like after that, I don't know. I mean, here's what I will say when it comes to the alignment of Iger, Jeff Ollie, everybody in the C-suite, for example, or for that matter, rather, is that they are completely aligned in replacing vintage nostalgic rides with intellectual property, because it's a very easy way of taking the rattle out of the baby's hand. You swap it with a piece of candy. There's a momentary lapse of crying for a second, but people generally forget after a very short time. And then by the time the land has been introduced and it's built and people are experiencing it, the majority of the people that are complaining are long gone. They're at the parks. They've probably already, you've already probably changed half their minds, and they've come around and say, you know what, actually, it's not that bad. And this happens repeatedly. And they know this, right? They know this. This is why they continue to do it. Right. So as long as Disney maintains Iger's fundamental strategy, which is to make Disney a flywheel of intellectual properties. And I of course, this was something that Walt Disney founded as well when he created the parks. They were to promote his TV shows back in the 1950s and 60s. He even said as much. This is a promotional tool for things like Davy Crockett and all those other IPs that Disney was creating at the time. But now going back to the 4-quadrant aspect of intellectual property integration into the parks, that has yet to be seen what kind of a lifespan that has, in my opinion, because eventually that has to come to a head. And correct me if I'm wrong with this, but I think that if new IP generation is weak, and if people have sequelitis, which I believe the Disney company has already admitted, at least in an internal level, that they can't continue this road of creating sequels and sequels and sequels, because eventually people are going to get burnout. And I see we're seeing glimpses of this. We definitely saw glimpses of this heavy-handedly with the Avengers properties, with Star Wars, right? Their biggest intellectual IPs have seen downturns, and it's only things like Zootopia and Toy Story. I mean, really, the Walt Disney animations and I wanted to say Pixar, but Toy Story, right? They're the ones that are propping up the majority of the revenue for entertainment, and thus the IPs. And Frozen's another one, of course. But it's going to hit ahead eventually. And so if you don't have the original IP, because now you've trained your audience to only go see movies and spend money on characters that they're familiar with and have nostalgic connections to, and what is the outcome of that? And so that is something that is a needle they're going to have to thread. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody has the answer, because that is a big problem that Iger has created for the company. And what does the solution look like? Well, I can tell you, I can give you a broad picture of what that solution looks like. You have to retrain your audience. You have to dig your way out the same way you put yourself in this position. Is that strategy going to work on an audience that is more generally disinterested in the theatrical experience? I think they know that, because they're integrating things like video games into their flywheel out of necessity. And I think there's a little disparity into that as well, because again, it's a patch for a problem they've created. And so I don't know, maybe you guys can give me some insight in that. Vash, I don't think I've heard your perspective on how they get themselves out of the sequelitis that they've created. What does that solution look like? Because I don't know. Low IP generation, sequelitis. How do you create a new generation of fans for new IPs without carrying the same characters into the next decade and the next decade after that and the next decade after that? Because eventually it's going to precipitate into a lack of interest just due to redundancy and lack of creativity.
Well, you also have real
okay.
quick. I'm so sorry. You also have we talked about this before with theatrical families. I mean, to take your family to the movies is $100 with the 2 kids and the whole thing. So people are picky with what they see in theaters. So when they see a new thing like Hoppers, are they really gonna roll the dice on that one when they can go see Inside Out 3? They know that's a good movie. You know, it's a sequel to something they already love. That's a huge problem for Disney as well. Go ahead, Ray. I do apologize.
Yeah, and I think Remy points out, a good thing there as well, in which sequelitis isn't just affecting Disney; it's obviously affecting various industries and so forth. But for Disney, it's very profound, right? Because original content generation for that flywheel, in order to facilitate that flywheel, is of paramount importance, as Jose astutely brings out. And there's no question there. The issue, though, and I think Iger knew this, right? Especially when seeing the results from Strange World and Wish and so forth, it was, I don't think the studio is necessarily capable of producing original films anymore. This is why he doubled down on the sequels the way he did as soon as he comes back in. I mean, immediately it's like, we're going to do Toy Story 5, we're going to do Moana 2, we're going to do Zootopia 2, we're going to do all these different things, right? And it has been profitable, at least in the short term. But it's an attempt to make up for the systemic issues at Disney Animation and even Pixar, and Marvel, and Star Wars, and all these different franchises, all these different studios and so forth, is that it's just they don't have the talent. They just don't have the talent to create really engaging original films anymore. That's just kind of how it is. This is why Bob Iger made these decisions. Unfortunately, the directives as laid out there by Jennifer Lee, by Kathleen Kennedy, by Pete Docter, unfortunately, and even Kevin Feige, have not been that fantastic. They just have not been that great. Jennifer Lee, really has diminished Disney's ability to create really solid original works. Just to an astounding degree. Film Thread has a great series there by Alan Ng talking about the D-files going into all of this, right? And how, unfortunately, they have pushed out a lot of the seasoned and veteran artists there and have replaced their ranks with people who might not be up to the task in creating great original works. And that's a problem and that's an issue. So, yeah, I mean, it would be great if they could create some original works. It'd be great to get out of sequelitis, but for the foreseeable future, the creative engine has stalled. What does that mean for the parks? It means the parks have less to draw on. What are we seeing from the parks right now? We're seeing Monsters, Inc. When did Monsters, Inc. come out, OG? I don't even remember. What is it? Early 2000s or something like that?
2001. It's been 25 years.
So we're putting in a 25-year-old property into Disney's Hollywood Studios today. It's like, that's a risky thing. We're doing Cars. We're doing, all of these things that have been around for quite some time because they have nothing new to draw on. I think the newest property or franchise that they do have to draw on is, I think, Encanto, right? For Animal Kingdom. Otherwise, you're talking about...
I would say Zootopia.
Yeah, Zootopia. Okay, we'll go with Zootopia. But we're talking about franchises that they might be looking at those double digits in terms of years, maybe even old enough to drink in some cases, and that's what we're pulling from. And I think that's going to be an issue, right? That's going to be an issue of if you want to maintain Iger's strategy of incorporating IP into the parks the way he has. And Jose was perfect in pointing this out. This was a process started with Iger when he came in and saw the opening of Expedition Everest over there in Animal Kingdom. It's like, look, we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars into this new attraction, and yet it's not based on an IP. Right. We have to change that. The problem is you're going to get less source material going down the pike here. And I do think there is a value in original attractions, like even Walt. Back in his day, he found value in original attractions, like Pirates of the Caribbean, for example, Haunted Mansion. These things that have resulted in their own IPs for the parks, exclusive to them. The problem is do they even have the creatives at the Imagineering level in order to do that? Do they even believe in that vision and so forth? I'm not actually too sure. I do think that they do have to get out of sequelitis. I'm just not sure they're capable right now.
Well, and here's the thing. They kind of come full circle with how important the Dana Walden position is at this point. You guys are right. Disney has never before depended as much on IP for their parks as they are right now. Back in
Correct.
the 70s, you would get, like, to your point, Dre, you would get a Big Thunder, you would get a Space Mountain. In the 60s,
Mountain,
you get a Pirates and a Haunted. We're not going to get that. So they have the studio side feeds this whole machine. So that needs to turn out hits. Otherwise, to your point, you're reusing franchises from 20, 25, 30 years ago, and which is okay to do, but you don't want to rely on that. You do want to have some of these newer things to kind of pull from. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, and things are going to be relevant to the future, right? Because when you're talking about theme park investments, you're not talking about a movie that just comes out for a season and then, it's put on Disney Plus and nobody talks about it again. You're talking about investments that have to stand the test of time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So it's very important that you have, I think, culturally relevant films that people want to book vacations for, and things that are going to stand the test of time for then out.
100%.
Yeah, multi-generational relevant films. I mean, look at Avatar. I think Avatar in Animal Kingdom is probably the best example of that. And of course, this, the sequel is Star Wars Land. I mean, it suffered for, I want to say it suffered. The guests suffered. No, I'm being hyperbolic, but the sequels have no lasting power in the parks. They're already integrating the original characters. A large swath of Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland is going to be Darth Vader, Luke, Han, Leia, and then of course they're going to savor the Rise of the Resistance side for the sequels. But that's the point: is that the Star Wars sequel trilogy, a 7, 8, and 9 of the Star Wars franchise, shouldn't only have a shelf life of, what are we at, 7 years? I mean, that is
from
that
the
is
last film, yes.
Yeah, that is an astoundingly poor performance, and I have a feeling we're going to see the same thing with Pandora. And so it's almost like the IP generation of entertainment is now what was once a strength of the company can now potentially be a detriment if they don't figure out what they're going to do once they get past the cost-cutting measures, which they're going to implement for the first, obviously foreseeable 18 months under the new leadership. But then they have to grow their way back out of that, and the only way you're going to grow your way back out of that is through rebuilding that creative engine. And hey, maybe it's Bruce Vaughn, maybe it's the Imagineers that redo that, because the theatrical side is so sanitized. That's the problem with Disney. It's so big now, it has to be sanitized because it's so big. It's a logical paradox, and that is the issue that we're at right now. And so maybe it's going to be up to the Imagineers to dig them out of this creative rut. I hope so. I would love to see that. I would love to see the parks become the creative engine, and then maybe entertainment can see that and get their mojo back. I'm just kind of painting a story here. I'm not making a prediction, right?
No, I mean, I think you're making a good case to make the chairman the CEO.
Fantastic. Now we got Mr. Remy D here. Remy, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Do you guys think if Hopper flops, Disney folds Pixar into Disney animation going forward? Also, any upcoming Disney movie you are looking forward to? Okay, so here's the thing, Remy. For your first question, I think that's a real possibility that Disney will eventually fold Pixar if Pixar continues to underperform. That's a huge risk. I don't think it's Hopper, though. I think that's a little soon. You know what I'm saying? They just had, not too long ago, Inside Out 2, which did really well. I don't think we're there yet. But if they continue to underperform, though, that is a real risk, because Pixar does become redundant. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a huge thing.
This is why Pete Docter really changed course really fast after Lightyear. Right? It was like, whoa, like we could lose the studio. It could very well be folded into Disney animation, as some Hollywood insiders and so forth, as some trades have predicted. Right? So it's kind of like, we have to really put out these kind of mass market films that we were back in the day, and we saw that with Inside Out 2 and so forth. Right? So I don't think Hoppers alone will do it, but I think that is a really for real possibility, and it's why I think Pete has changed tact, and to the disgruntlement of some within Pixar for sure. But it's kind of one of these things where it's like you have to. There's no real choice there to be made.
Yeah, no, well said. What do you think, Jose? You think do you think it's Hopper that does it if it flops, or do you kind of agree with Vash and I, like not maybe Hopper, but maybe eventually if they continue to underperform, that Pixar will be folded into Disney?
Yeah, I don't have I don't have too much insight. However, I can say things that I know for a fact that every time a movie flops, they lay off to the tune of hundreds of Pixar employees. So that's definitely not good. So any sort of downsizing after theatrical release is indication of abject failure. I don't know if Hopper is going to be the movie that does Pixar in. However, 2 or 3 more repeats of that, and it's pretty much kaputs for Pixar. They're just going to be absorbed by Walt Disney Animation. And along that line of thinking, I can go ahead and just present the question now: will Lucasfilm get absorbed by Fox Studios if Mandalorian and Grogu is a fiscal disaster, financial disaster? Because it's not quite like Lucasfilm has been profitable anytime recently.
No,
the 20th century.
They haven't. But I will say this: what's working towards Mando and Grogu's favor. I saw today on social media that it's the lowest budget Star Wars film they've ever done. I think it's only like 150 million or something like that.
I think they got a really big tax subsidy from LA, right? From California, which helps in reducing that cost. Big link there. But look, I mean, for 2025, I think I counted like 7 flops, including most recently Snow White, the 2025 version. That is, we just got our first indicator of the real numbers as brought forward by Caroline Reed of Forbes. Actually, she went to the UK filings and actually was able to get that number, and it's well in excess of $300 million if you actually fold in the marketing and advertising costs as well. And it's just astounding how much money they are spending on these films. I mean, when you're talking about a $170 million loss just on the production side, it's just that all these things are not sustainable. And so we do have to reduce the how much these things cost. Maybe we do have to reanalyze. I think, Jose, before you brought it up, these kind of mid-tier films or mid-level films, right? That was completely done away with the Bob Iger era. He was like, hey, look, listen, let's go ahead and stick it all on tent poles. Maybe we do have to rethink that strategy if, in fact, we can't get the returns that we need to generate in order to pay back for these big tentpole films.
Well said. Now, the second part of Remy's question is any upcoming Disney movie you were looking forward to. Now, here's the thing: I'm actually looking forward to Mando and Grogu just because I want to see another Star Wars movie. It's been far too long. I'm going to give it a shot. I didn't love the Super Bowl thing, right? I mean, but that had nothing to really do with the movie, which was the problem. But I am excited for that movie just because finally Star Wars back in the theater. So that's probably the one that I'm looking forward to. I'm very curious also Doomsday. That's going to be a biggie. I'm kind of going to see if Marvel can kind of, get back on the radar a little bit here. But Jose, what movie are you looking forward to? And then I'll go to Vash.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to Doomsday the most. Mandalorian,
Not so much.
Season 3 left such a sour taste in my mouth. I'm really not too excited for that. They botched everything. They brought in Boba Fett and made him the main character. I'm sorry, reverse that. They brought in Lizzo and Jack Black and made them the main character. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that wasn't too good right there. That's for sure. Not great. And I do have to agree with Jose. I mean, look, Mandalorian and Grogu would be cool if season 3 wasn't what it
didn't
was.
Exist.
Right?
Yeah,
It just diminished enthusiasm there.
If they announced, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if they announced this movie after season 2, I'd be so hyped because season 2 left on such a high note, probably the highest note for any Star Wars fan since The Empire Strikes Back came out. Come on, right? But I digress.
Yeah,
and they didn't. They released season 3 instead, and it's weird how Lucasfilm and Disney are treating this film. They're not really treating it like a big event picture. It's like they're kind of, I don't know. They've already soured on the film before it's even put out. It's very strange. Doomsday for sure. Doomsday is the one I'm looking forward to the most, and not because I'm interested necessarily in the story, but I am interested to see whether or not they can recapture that fire again of I think the end of phase 2. I don't even know what phase we're on, to be honest with you. Whatever the end of Infinity War was, can we collect that once again? They're going to have to, because the amount of stars in this thing are just mind-boggling. Like this is gonna have to make a lot of money to pay off this talent right here. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, Vash, I want to pick your brain on this, and you as well, Jose. The MCU. I mean, incredibly successful up to Endgame, right? The landscape has changed, not just at Disney, but theatrically, right? I mean, it has ever since the pandemic. Do you think that Marvel should maybe, and I made the case that maybe they should, but I'm curious what you think. But like, do you think that maybe Marvel should pull away from that cinematic universe thing and do more standalone movies, maybe standalone trilogies, and kind of pull back on this whole connected universe thing? Do people right now, do they have an appetite to do the whole cinematic, we're going to watch every new Marvel thing in theaters, or should they focus more on standalone stuff? What's your thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Jose. I'll answer after you.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think they should kill the cinematic universe with Doomsday or whatever comes after that. I think it's Secret Wars 1 and 2.
Wars, yeah.
They just decided they're going to make it into 2 films. No, I think Secret Wars is a good stopping point for the cinematic universe. It's overextended its welcome. It overextended its welcome at the end of Endgame, right? Like that should have been it. But they decided to go on and on and on. No, I would like to see them put Marvel in cryogenesis for a couple of years, kind of let people reset their expectations, maybe let some creative minds behind the scenes come up with some new ideas. Because right now they're heavily into production, not just on Avengers Doomsday, but on other Marvel films as well and other productions to include Daredevil, right? So there's a lot of creative juices that are already taken and dedicated to current films. I want to see them reassess, take a break, put it on the shelf, come back to it after a couple of years, and then if it's popular enough that it justifies them doing another creative universe, I hope that happens organically. I just don't want it to be forced. That's the problem. See, that's the problem, is that the Marvel universe happened organically. It's kind of hard to see that in retrospect, because in retrospect it's a universe, right? But the universe moniker is only because it became that, right? And so it wasn't something that was necessarily deliberate. They put out Iron Man and it turned into what it did, a $30 billion string of films. So yeah, that I reset it, put it in cryogenesis, come back after a couple of years, see what you can do with it.
Okay. What say you, Vash?
I do agree with that assessment. I mean, look, this connected universe or shared universe, it was the franchise's one of the biggest assets of the franchise, and now it's become one of its biggest detriments. And when did that occur? It really occurred after Endgame, and it wasn't just because of Endgame. It was really the onset of a lot of Disney Plus content that was very varying in quality. There was a lot of shows that came out around that point, a lot of watch hours that people had to invest in order to keep up with this thing, and people just were unwilling to do it. And that's not to say that people lost their enthusiasm entirely. We saw Deadpool and Wolverine do very good numbers. We saw Spider-Man No Way Home actually do very good numbers, but those were few and far between. And especially when you have films like Captain America: Brave New World that relies so heavily on some of that Disney Plus content, I think the cracks really started to form right there. I do think they'll have to put this in carbonate, let's say, and then let it out a little bit later with a new universe, a new palette from which to build on. But that's the problem with Marvel, is it's a $4 billion investment. It's something that's generating well over $25 billion in revenue. Do you necessarily want that to go away? And that's the decision facing Disney right now. What decisions can we make for the long-term health of these franchises versus how do we appease shareholders? That is going to be something that Josh D'Amaro and Dana Walden will have to navigate.
Mm-hmm. Well, and real quick, because we're almost on the 2-hour mark, so we're going to head out pretty soon. But I want to ask you guys as well, because we do have a new team coming in. We have Josh and Dana. Marvel's track record lately has been kind of spotty, let's be honest. I mean, do we see Kevin Feige surviving the administration change? I mean, is it possible he bows out, or what do you think?
I think the only reason why he would bow out is if he's not given the freedom that he was afforded with Bob Iger maybe possibly even Bob Chapek. I don't think he wants to have the rails put on him, so to speak, right? So if Dana Walden or even Josh Tomorrow goes at him hard and says, hey, you have to do this, that, and the other thing, I don't know how compliant he will be in that instance. And maybe he just says, you know what, I can do what I want anywhere else. Right. So that's going to be the thing that you have to navigate right there. Right now, if you replace Kevin Feige, who are you going to replace him with? That's going to be the big question right there. And I don't know if Disney, or at least this new admin, wants to make that call necessarily. But that's one of my frustrations with this whole thing, right? Is because when Kathleen Kennedy was removed, well, I guess she removed herself. She retired, right? When the replacement was made, this was a decision that predated Josh Giamaro being placed in the CEO position. And again, he's not CEO yet. We're going to have to wait until March 14th. But that's really a call, I think, that Josh Giamaro should have been afforded. The problem is with James Gorman coming in here and doing the Morgan Stanley thing where it's like, okay, we're going to give out big contracts to all these different leaders and all these different division heads and so forth. You kind of took the personnel decisions that are so crucial for a successful CEO run out of the CEO's hands. And now you're delivering him the draft picks, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, and you're telling him, hey, here's all your personnel. We made those decisions for you. Now give me a championship. I don't know if that's necessarily a realistic expectation, but it is the expectation by these shareholders and this board.
There you go. Well, Jose, what do you think? What's your thoughts on that, brother?
Well, first and foremost, that's a really good analogy, by the way, because that's exactly what happened. When it comes to Kevin Feige, somebody that has the production expertise, the level of charisma, his ability to channel his ideas and make them reality with the power that he has and inspiration, because he's very inspirational. And in my opinion, anyways, I would think that the people that he works with thinks he is the same. You definitely don't want to lose somebody like that. However, I wouldn't necessarily want him to continue to do the same thing after they finish wrapping up this phase of the Marvel Universe. Yeah. I would be more inclined to challenge Feige to reinvent himself. If he wants to stay with the Disney company, I would give him the opportunity to explore different creative outlets, whether it's Marvel. I think he's already come out and said he doesn't want to touch Star Wars. I don't blame him. But I would challenge him to do something completely different. Whether he wants to stick with making movies about superheroes, I would let him. But the only guardrail I would put on him is I would tell him, look, Kevin, we had fun with this Marvel universe. I want you to do something completely different. That would be the only directive that I would give him. Other than that, go crazy. The other thing too is I wouldn't give him the op tempo that he had under Phase 3. That was one of the biggest reasons that Phase 3's quality lacked so severely. And of course, that was a Bob Chapek initiative, because they wanted to bring this Marvel content to Disney Plus so badly as a consequence of course, COVID. And of course, they had to they had to put content on Disney Plus. And so, it was an initiative, but it sounds to me like they've already worked that out. So I don't think that's a problem. Kevin Feige's been very clear. He didn't like that op tempo, and now he's getting what he wants. But I certainly wouldn't let somebody like Kevin go. And maybe he can do well over at Fox News. I don't know. But yeah, he's somebody you wouldn't want to let go. I don't know. What do you think, OG? Do you pressure him into making more, Marvel movies beyond Secret Wars? Do you just continue to do the same thing over again? Or do you take one of the best producers of all time and say, hey, reinvent yourself. We're going to give you an increase in pay if you stick around?
I agree with you. I think you keep Feige, but you can't stay the course. You got to evolve. Like if you're going to stay at Marvel, I think you have to evolve. Like I think what worked a decade ago isn't going to work necessarily for the next 10 years. So he has to really figure that out with what's going to work for Marvel, right? You evolve or die, basically, right? So that cinematic universe thing, we're not in the same position we were in 2015. So that's not going to work. So he's got to reimagine what the chessboard looks like for Marvel. So yeah, no, you keep him. I think he's brilliant. You don't want him going to another company, obviously. He doesn't want to run Star Wars, and honestly, who would blame him? A lot of heat comes with that. So yeah, I think that he just has to kind of reimagine what he wants to do with this Marvel brand. And I think that if he can kind of lock that in, I think he'll be fine. And right now, Disney's going through a lot, right? We have a new CEO, we have a new president, a new chief creative officer, or actually the first creative officer ever for Disney. And we have Brennan and Filoni taking over Star Wars. It would be a lot of change to now switch out the Marvel guy as well. I think that we need to have a little more stability here. At least have one of the studios, maintain, So I think you keep him, but I think that he has to sort of reassess what the Marvel game plan is. I don't think the whole thing with like this MCU going forward, you just can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, And the problem too with the MCU model, when it's going good, it's fantastic, right? But when your movies are hit and miss, like when you have a kind of like a underperforming movie, like Fantastic Four and what have you, it sort of like messes up the whole machine, right? Because now you have a movie that like, okay, that didn't do well, but now you have 3 movies after it that's all tied to that movie. So right. it gums up the works. I mean, we've seen it with didn't they have to change a bunch of stuff because Eternals didn't do well or something like that? Like they ended up like writing that out of the cinematic universe. It just leads to a lot of problems. So he's got to reassess what this studio is going to do going forward. He's smart. I'm sure he can handle it, but it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah,
absolutely going to be a challenge.
Just a closing thought on that. The problem with a cinematic universe, and any cinematic universe for that, is that it's contingent on momentum. And like you said, if one movie flops, you lose momentum completely. Yeah. And you have to start all over. You have to regenerate that momentum again, which is the hardest part is getting the momentum back. That's what requires the most amount of energy. And that could take 2, 3, 4 successful movies consecutively just to get back to the momentum you're at prior to the one movie that failed. And the risk is just too large.
Think about too. I think momentum for sure, but like if your plans get derailed, maybe like from a Jonathan Majors and a Kang, issue right there, Kang Dynasty, right, where they had to really pivot right there. That's the other issue as well, because like you said, OG, they had to pivot from Eternals, and now they might have to pivot from Captain America: Brave New World, and the issues that leaves behind there. It's just not a great place to be right now. And so when it's all on fire, when it's all working, great, but it's a different story here in 2026.
Yep. Well said. Gentlemen, fantastic conversation. I want to thank everybody in the chat, Kiki and Luca, Disney fan, Remy D, Cassandra, Epic Berserker, Tones Poppy was in the house too. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Theme Park Philosophy. I'm going to start with you. Where can everybody find you on social media? And if you can give them a little synopsis as to what you do over there. I love your direction on your channel. Let everybody at home know what you do over there at Theme Park Philosophy and where they can find you.
Thank you very much, Orange Grove. And thank you again for hosting this live chat. Vash, it was a pleasure finally having a podcast with you. Thank you, sir. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to many, many more. Everybody in the chat, thanks very much for hanging on this evening. It is late over here on the East Coast, 12:37. So if you're on the East Coast sticking around, you are a true fan. Thank you so much. And for everybody that subbed and that's supporting my channel, thank you again very much. It is if you haven't checked it out, it's called Theme Park Philosophy. It's a very small channel. I just started it very recently, but essentially what we do is we take Western philosophy and we examine the parks, how we engage with the parks, the companies that run them, and we see what they reveal about the human experience. So if you're into that kind of thing, make sure you go to Theme Park Philosophy over on YouTube and go subscribe, go support me, and I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
There he is doing great stuff over there. Make sure you subscribe to Theme Park Philosophy. And obviously after the show, I'm going to add everyone's information in the description. So if you're catching us on the replay, Mr. VashSky, welcome back on OG55, sir. It was great to have you. And you have a channel as well. If you want to let everybody home know where they could find you on YouTube and social media, sir.
Absolutely. It's going to be VashSky Parkcast. That's youtube.com/@ VashSky Parkcast right there. If you want to go ahead and look that up manually. I don't have any content there right now, but trust me, it is coming. It is in the works. I am working on it continuously. Had some setbacks, but you guys have been amazing, amazingly gracious. 374 subscribers, and it's just very, very heartwarming. So thank you so much for your early support right there. That's gonna be phenomenal. Gonna be coming out with videos on Josh G. Dana Walden, also some live streams going over not just Disney leadership, but also theme parks themselves. Be really, really awesome to go over that content with you guys. It's just gonna be absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much, OG and Jose over there at Theme Park Philosophy for joining me on this amazing thing. And OG, thank you for giving me your time right there. Awesome
Absolutely.
stuff. Great to be back. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vash. Make sure you subscribe to VashSky's channel. Again, I will be linking that in the description down below. And Theme Park Philosophy as well. I want to thank everybody for joining, hanging out tonight. We had a great turnout tonight. A lot of people in the chat today. It was a really, really fun time. Thank you for watching this episode of OG55.
Thank you so much for watching OG55. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and become a member today. Mwah!